Hey guys, ChocoTaco here with Team Level Cap. I'm back this week bringing you another guide for PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. This video is a compilation of a bunch of tips and tricks I use to help me win games, and the strategies in this video will be helpful to you regardless of your skill level. Let's go ahead and start things off with how to escape a moving vehicle without taking damage. All you have to do for this one is drive right past something on your left, here I'm using a tree, and get out right as you get to it. You should take no damage and your vehicle will keep going. Not only is this a quick escape, but it's a really good way to trick enemies because they're going to think you're still in your vehicle and they're going to be really confused about where you are. I will say that this can be a pretty dangerous technique because if you mess it up, especially in solos, you'll just die from falling. That being said, it's pretty easy to pull off and it's pretty consistent. I've actually never died from doing this. Plus, if you're playing duos or if you're playing squads, if you do this and you mess it up, you're only going to get knocked out, you're not going to actually die. Another thing about duos and squads is you can just have one of your teammates get out of the vehicle while you keep driving. One final note, this is really great to use when you're approaching a compound. When you get out of the vehicle, as I mentioned before, the vehicle is going to keep moving and you're going to be already out. So if there's someone in a building, they're going to be really confused about where you are and you're going to have the upper hand. Next, I've got a tip about airdrops. I always go for airdrops when possible and I've actually never seen anyone use this. If you get to an airdrop and either you don't want or you already have something in it, switch it out for your current gear so that it ends up on the ground instead of in the care package. Here I'm swapping out my level 3 helmet, since I already have one, and I'm equipping the M249 and picking my Groza back up. This makes it so the gear in the care package ends up on the ground. This does two things. First, if someone approaches the care package from a different angle, they're just going to see an empty care package and they're not going to see the weapons or armor because it's on the other side. Second, anyone that approaches and sees the gear on the ground will assume it's looted and usually not actually look at the gear. The M249 isn't a great example since it's so huge, but other weapons will lie flat and can be especially hard to identify in the grass. Next, I want to talk about quick scoping. This is something I've only known about for a few weeks. I just never really thought to try it since PUBG seems like a game where quick scoping wouldn't work. But it does work and it's actually really good. All I'm doing is pressing right click then left click in quick succession. You can see here that quick scoping is not 100% accurate, but the spread is so minimal that if I was shooting at someone, even at their head, I wouldn't be missing. It might be hard to see in the video because it's so small, but PUBG gives you a crosshair when you have a sniper rifle out, and it even has a dot in the middle. This isn't typical for most first-person shooters, and it makes pulling off quickscope shots pretty easy. The only real disadvantages to quickscoping are that you can't really lean, and it starts getting inaccurate past 100 meters. Also worth noting is that you can't really be moving when you shoot, otherwise it'll throw off your shot. You can see here that I strafe out, stop, and then shoot, hitting this guy 3 times in a row. I'm having to expose my whole body every time I peek, but at the same time I'm getting to aim with a stationary dot that's in the middle of my screen, instead of a scope that bounces and sways up and down. I definitely think quickscoping is way too strong right now, and I really hope the devs end up taking out the crosshair when you have a sniper rifle out. Let's move on to some really cool jumps and boosts around the map. I do want to briefly say that some of these jumps do involve crouch jumping. There are a ton of other videos out there about crouch jumping, so all I want to share is that I use my thumb for both space and C to consistently hit crouch jumps. While these may seem very situational, I use these every day to give myself an advantage. First is a jump to get on the second story balcony of garage houses. These are popular spots, and from a quick count, I found 35 of these across the map. All you have to do is jump on this railing and then jump to the wooden awning onto the balcony. You can then enter the building, usually catching enemies off guard. This is also awesome to use in duos and squads because you can attack the upstairs from multiple angles at the same time. Not all garage houses actually have that railing, but if you have a UAZ, you can use it to boost yourself up. All you have to do is park the UAZ next to the stairs, jump from the stairs to the UAZ, and then jump to the balcony just like before. I had a UAZ with a hardtop here, but this also works if you have a UAZ with a roll cage. There are actually a bunch of places you can use the UAZ to boost yourself into useful positions, but I'm not going to go over all of them in this video because there are so many. Just keep it in mind as you move around the map. You'll need to remember when looking for places to boost yourself that you can't actually jump onto the UAZ without some help. Here I jumped from a fence to the UAZ, but anything will work, including just being uphill from the vehicle. Another really useful jump to know about that you can use all across the map is using doors to get to higher places. Jumping on top of this garage house roof might seem like it's not that good, but there are definitely some situations where it could be useful. For example, if someone's outside, you can look straight down at them, or if someone's pushing you in the building, you can get on top and just wait for them to come out the door. Keep in mind, you can use positions like this to jump to other positions. Again, this seems like it's not that good to be on this roof, but there could definitely be a situation where it'll give you an advantage. As another example, this style of 3-story house has an upstairs door that you can jump onto from the balcony. This house is in Rozhok, but just like I mentioned earlier with the garage houses, there are many copies of this exact house throughout the map, so this applies to all of them. To complete this jump, all you have to do is jump on the door from the balcony, and then from there you can jump onto the roof. Being on the roof of a house like this is really awesome. It gives you great vision in all directions and you can easily get to cover. If I was getting shot from the west, I could get behind this part of the roof, and if I was getting shot from the north, I could get behind this part. This will work for every direction. Also, just like we saw before, I can use this roof to jump to another roof. In some cities like Pochinki, where there are a lot of buildings closer together, you can jump to a bunch of different roofs. One thing I really want to get across in this part of the video is that you should look at everything you see as a way to get an advantage. Here I'm in Gatka, and I think most people would see this stack of logs and think nothing of it, maybe use it for cover. But when I see it, I instantly notice that it can be used to get on the roof. And you can easily do this too. All you have to do is make a habit of looking for this kind of stuff. Battle Royale games like PUBG are so challenging because a minor mistake or disadvantage can cause you to get killed, but knowing how to put yourself in that position where you have the advantage is going to make a big difference. Even if one of the positions just helps you get one kill this week, that kill could be the thing that gets you that chicken dinner. Also, the more of these positions you learn and find out about, the more you can use them and the more you'll benefit from them. This next tip is so simple that I almost can't believe I have to include it, but I think it's too important to ignore. Closing your doors. Before I get into why, I do agree with a lot of people that closing doors in duos and squads can be a bit of a problem because your teammates might loot a building you've already been through. Okay, so there are two main benefits to closing doors. The first one is that any approaching enemies will be unaware that you're around unless they see you. I get kills all the time from enemies driving or running up to a compound I'm in. I just stop what I'm doing, wait until they either make their way to me, or I get an easy shot on them through a window. In both cases, you can put yourself into a situation where you know about them, but they don't know about you. The second benefit is that if another player comes to a place you've already looted, they won't be able to tell unless they find any weapons in the ground with no ammo. Until then, they're usually just wasting their time. This is a very indirect bonus to closing doors, but anything you can do to help make your enemies weaker is going to help you win a game. One last thing about this, closing doors doesn't really take any extra time, so there's not really any reason not to do it. Earlier I briefly mentioned crouch jumping, and in one of the most recent updates to PUBG, the devs took away the ability to bind both crouch and space to the same key binding. I would consider myself pretty decent at crouch jumping, but I definitely can't hit it 100% of the time, and I know I'm not the only one. Here are some ways you can get out of certain windows without crouch jumping. All you have to do is find something that you can get on top of that's even with the window. Here I'm on the railing and I just crouch out at an angle. This will work with any 3-story house like this one. Most of the towers throughout the map have windows in the upper floor that can be crouched out of. The ones that work have a desk that's the same height as the window, so you can just jump on the desk and climb out. The last examples I'll show are in this style of 2-story house. There's a railing at the top of the stairs that again is the same height as the window. Just like I talked about earlier with jumps and boosts, there are more of these types of windows that you can crouch out of throughout the map. I'm not going to go over all of them here. Just be on the lookout for any objects that are the same height as the window. You can jump on, crouch, and probably get out of the window. This next tip hopefully won't only make you a more successful player, but it should help protect your ears from the deafening noise that the buggy puts out. Once the buggy is near or at its top speed of about 90 or 91 kilometers per hour, you no longer need to boost to maintain that speed. Here I'm alternating between boosting and not boosting, and you can see my speed stays the same. This will not only save your ears, but it will make it easier to hear other sounds in the game, something that's really important. Also, you'll use less gas while you're not boosting. This works best on flat ground, so you want to still boost when going uphill. The last tip I've got for you guys is about when to use certain fire modes, sights, and scopes. What I recommend you do when running around outside, or anywhere for that matter, is to have either full auto or burst selected on your AR, with a red dot or hollow sight equipped. The most immediate threat is always an enemy that's right next to you, so that's what you want to be prepared for. If an enemy is far away though, you should have time to switch to single fire and equip a scope if you have one. Let's look at it the other way around. Let's say you have single fire enabled and a 4x scope equipped. If an enemy shows up right next to you, behind a tree or prone in the grass, you're probably going to have a bad time. You technically have time to change fire modes, but changing to a sight won't be an option. The same principle can be applied when entering a building when you have a good close quarters combat weapon, like a shotgun or SMG. It may seem obvious, but you want to switch to your shotgun or SMG anytime you're entering a building. I see most people only switching to their secondary when they know an enemy is around. Instead, you should always assume there are enemies and make a habit out of having the best weapon out for your environment. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the tips in this video aren't major game changers on their own, but when you start applying them all to your games, you'll start having more and more advantages over your opponents. As always, if you have questions about the strategies in this video, I'll do my best to answer them in the comments. Thanks for checking out the video, and good luck getting those chicken dinners.